welcome to Supervisor's Report with Nate Miley. I'm your host, former Assemblymember Catharine Baker and constituent of Supervisor Miley because I live in Alameda County. And Nate, it's good to see you on Supervisor's Report. How are you?
I'm doing fine, and thank you.
Great. Good to see you and good to catch up. You know, we have so much to talk about today, but let's start, as we always do, with Supervisor's Choice. What would you like to put out there for us from the kickoff?
Well, the one thing I'd like to say is, we are very saddened and heartbroken over the loss of our colleague, Supervisor Wilma Chan. Mm-hmm. You know, that hit us real hard because we had a 10-hour meeting the Tuesday, and then Wednesday she got hit in the crosswalk, and it was just a shocker to have her here with us one day and then be gone the next. And right now, I'm still kind of feeling it, both the shock of her, and I keep thinking that she'll show up at any time now. And so I'm kind of in denial. And I'm also almost at a state of anger. I'm not really angry at the young person who hit her. I'm just angry about pedestrian safety issues in general, because I worked a lot on pedestrian safety when I was on the Oakland City Council, and I continue to be a big pedestrian safety advocate, working with older adults and others. And it's just unfortunate that we still have these incidences of pedestrian injuries and fatalities, because and I call them incidences because they don't have to occur. They really don't have to occur. So we're just really trying to deal with the aftermath of losing her. And, last week we had a very lengthy Board of Supervisors meeting. It actually went, it was the longest supervisors meeting we've ever had, at least since I've been on the board. It went 13 and a half hours last Tuesday. Wow. And part of that meeting was dealing with Wilma's memorial, and then also appointing her successor. And the board took a decision to appoint her chief of staff, Dave Brown, to serve in her place, mainly because he can hit the ground running. He's obviously very prepared for it, and also he can't run for re-election, so he's really serving in a caretaker role. I abstained on that vote. The vote was 3 with my abstention. I abstained mainly because I felt, though I could support Dave, I just felt it was important that the board put it on the agenda as an actual appointment of him, as a noticed appointment, so the public would be aware that this was going to take place. And I felt last Tuesday we should have just discussed it and not taken action and made it an action item for this coming Tuesday. But the board decided, and we had the prerogative to have it as a discussion and to make the appointment. The board decided to go ahead with the appointment. 3 supervisors voted for it, and I abstained. Mm-hmm. So the update on where we are with the loss of our colleague. And, I've known Wilma for about 4 decades, and she brought a skill set to the board that we're going to surely miss. And I was really excited when she came back from the assembly to serve on the Board of Supervisors once again. So my heart goes to her family, her staff, and others with that, serious and grave loss.
Well, so nicely said. And of course, I was shocked by the news as well. And I think much of our community, someone who for quite literally decades had served this region and her constituents tirelessly and worked so very hard. It was so widely respected. My condolences to you and all in the area, all her friends, families, and loved ones. And it will be an adjustment, but what a wonderful way to honor her in your own words. Today, we'll be keeping her and her family in our thoughts, of course, during this holiday season that's upon us. So for sure. Let me also ask you, as we transition to something else that is a serious matter, and that is COVID. We usually do an update on COVID here on Supervisor's Report, and we're heading into the holidays, the winter months, the months where we're indoors a lot, where we're naturally going to want to travel and gather. Let's start. What are health experts here in our area telling us we should expect in the coming weeks and months as we go into the holidays?
Well, I think basically people shouldn't get relaxed. They should stay heightened. In fact, it just so happened today I went to Kaiser, had scheduled for today my booster. So I got my booster today. I scheduled for the 22nd. So people should not relax. They should continue to wear masks, practice social distancing as appropriate, particularly indoors, and particularly if they're with people who they aren't familiar with. You know, we are expecting potentially that there could be another uptick. We are seeing that in some counties, in fact. But I think as long as people continue to get vaccinated, get that booster, wear your mask, do the things that we all need to do, I think we should be okay. Now, we have about 1.2 million people in Alameda County who have been fully vaccinated. That still leaves about another 500,000 that aren't. And some of them are children under the age of 5 as well. But the point is, we just have to continue to be vigilant and not let up.
Well, thank you for setting the example by getting a booster yourself. My appointment is, I have one on calendar. I got one as quickly as I fit the categories. And of course, now boosters have been made available to anyone who's after 6 months since their last full vaccination and who's over 18. Let me ask you this. How are our hospitals looking right now? And are we seeing anything yet in Alameda County that we should be concerned about?
Well, as far as I know, I think our hospitals, they're doing pretty well. There's not a significant amount of uptick in the hospital beds, respiratory units. I do think it might be timely for Dr. Moss and I to appear on a TV30 show, if not next month in December, maybe at the latest in January, because we'll have a better sense of how things are going. But at the moment, it's kind of like we're cautiously optimistic about the future, as long as everybody continues to be vigilant. But our hospitals, I think, are pretty good at the moment.
Sounds good. And of course, we can surely go to your website and the county websites for the latest updates on both where, who can get vaccinated, where it can be done, and also what are the different, I want to say, mandates. They've changed over time, and I don't know if they'll change again before we get a chance to visit with our health officer. But I imagine your website has a lot of great information on it, right?
Yes. And, for instance, with the mandates, people have to be vaccinated. And if they're vaccinated at certain facilities, the facilities can then determine whether or not they need to wear a mask or not. For instance, at my fitness facility, everyone who goes to the fitness facility has to be vaccinated. Now, the fitness facility still has us wearing masks, except for when we're actually in the exercise room, we can take off our masks. So there's some flexibility, but the flexibility is still limited. And once again, it's with the prerogative of the business or the operator. And then the thing is, with our county employees, the board was going to pass a policy mandating vaccination for all county employees. But we decided, 3 of us on the board of supervisors decided last week, that we didn't think it was fair that we have a mandate for vaccination without an option for testing. So we're asking our staff to go back and at least allow that option. I personally feel everyone should get vaccinated, but I know there are people that feel very strongly against that. So I want to offer that option for testing. And that falls in line with what the health officer has issued as well for essential workers who are going into settings.
Well, very helpful. And again, I look forward to an opportunity to get to visit with our health officer to find out what's next and where we're at. And I think that's a great idea on your part. So hopefully we'll be doing that again here on Tri-Valley TV. But thank you for keeping us updated on what's happening with COVID and for providing that information on your site and otherwise. Okay, I'm going to shift again to another very important topic, not just for Oakland, but of course for Alameda County and I think the Bay Area and baseball fans, and that's the A's and where their home will be. So not too long ago, the Board of Supervisors voted, I believe, 4-1 on a non-binding resolution that supplies some funding for a Howard Terminal project location. I want to just tell us about what that latest development meant, and then we'll unpack that a little bit.
Yeah, well, basically, we voted a non-binding commitment, and I don't even like to use the word commitment, but a non-binding support for joining an enhanced infrastructure financing district with the city of Oakland. And right now, there is no enhanced financing district that's in place. The structure for that hasn't even commenced. All we did is say, yes, we would consider joining that. And that allows the city and the A's to continue negotiating on coming up with a deal, a term sheet that both the city and the A's could agree to. And if they're capable of doing that, and if the environmental work reports are approved and certified, then I think we'll circle back, and the city and the A's will then be looking for the county to make a binding commitment. And then when we do that, there will be the whole process of setting up the enhanced infrastructure financing district.
Okay. And we're talking about this, I sometimes when I see EIFD, but this district that you're referring to, maybe we could just kind of explain to our viewers what that would be. Is that a jurisdiction that would be new taxing authority or funding authority? How could you define what an enhanced infrastructure finance district is for our viewers?
Well, basically, it's legislation that kind of allowed us to move forward with the dissolution of redevelopment and the taxing entities within that district, because it's just not the county, but we're kind of the huge one with the city, would have to agree to be a part of this district. And our tax increment could be utilized to support the financing of projects within that district. And in this case, it would be associated with the Oakland A's. And we would be talking about like 150 million of tax increment that the county would be providing for this district in the future.
Okay. And so I'm also, it must be the lawyer in me, focusing a little bit on definitions. You're mentioning a tax increment. Is that part of the sales tax at the county level, or is that part of another way of looking at that? What would the tax increment be? Where would we see that?
It's property tax. It would be, the increase in property tax. And that was one of the arguments that the city had for the county to consider joining this. If the stadium is not built, basically, we don't have any significant increment coming from that property. But if there's a stadium that goes through with the associated development, commercial, residential, the stadium, et cetera, then there'll be a significant amount of tax dollars, incremental tax dollars that'll grow. And
okay.
So the city was just saying, if you don't do it, it's going to be, very small. But if you do it, it's going to be a significant amount. So why not allow that amount to be associated with the stadium deal?
Okay, sounds good. Well, you know what? We've got a few more questions, but we're going to take a quick break here, and we'll be right back here with Supervisor's Report. Nate Miley, stay tuned. And welcome back to this latest episode of Supervisor's Report with Supervisor Nate Miley. He, of course, represents parts of the Tri-Valley, including Pleasanton. And Nate, you were just giving us some updates on a topic near and dear to my heart, and I know yours, and that's, of course, the A's, and mentioning the recent non-binding vote that the supervisors took to be part, if I'm portraying this correctly, of a financing district. Not binding, the details aren't super clear, but what can you tell us about what this means for Howard Terminal as a location for a future A's home?
Well, it continues the negotiations between the city and the A's. If the county hadn't moved in the direction of a non-binding support for this, then that would have been I don't want to use the word excuse, but that would have been a rationale for the negotiations to basically end. Initially, the A's weren't looking for us to be a part of an enhanced infrastructure financing district. The city brought us into that, but I think at this juncture, both the A's and the city are looking for the county to participate. So by our support for this, non-binding at the moment, it does allow the city and the Oakland A's to continue their negotiation.
Okay.
And they can't blame the county for any reason for negotiations to be stalled or terminated.
Well, good. And do you have a sense of what the timeline will be next and what role Alameda County might play in the next steps?
Well, I do think Major League Baseball is very eager for the A's and the city to come to some resolution around this, because even though we made a non-binding support for this, the A's are still looking at other sites outside of the state of California for a new home. So I do think the city of Oakland is on a short time frame to bring this to fruition. And I would expect within the next 6 months, that's going to happen. They need to come up with a term sheet, and then they need to get the environmental impact report certified. So I would suspect I can't see this going on longer than the end of this fiscal year. If it goes past this fiscal year, then I'd be shocked. I do think Major League Baseball wants to get this wrapped up.
And by fiscal year, that's probably through winter and spring of next year and up to June. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So we will have an opportunity to talk more about this on Supervisor's Report, and can even, as more decision-making points or other involvement of the county comes up, we're going to unpack that here. So thank you for keeping us updated. I am an A's fan, so I hope they will continue to be rooted in Oakland. All right. Well, as we were talking about our community, this time of year is also part of redistricting, the once a decade process where different jurisdictions kind of write up what their maps will be for who will represent them. And Alameda County is no exception to that. In fact, we've talked about redistricting on Supervisor's Report before, but since then, the census data came out. Before I talk about the process for redistricting, what did the census data tell you about certainly Alameda County and the Tri-Valley portion of your district?
Well, I think the census data showed that there had been some movement in terms of population growth, both in Oakland as well as in the Tri-Valley area. And so there needed to be some adjustments made in the supervisorial districts. We could make those adjustments with some minor tweaks of the present districts, but we really need to go through a more formal process as opposed to just making a decision that we're going to make some minor changes. But the census did show that the growth has been basically in Oakland and in the Tri-Valley.
Okay. Well, it doesn't surprise me that the growth has certainly been in the Tri-Valley. We've seen it and we experience it firsthand. Do you have a sense now of what process this will be? At the state level, and different jurisdictions have an independent commission that does most of the work. Other jurisdictions have a commission make recommendations to elected officials who then vote on it. What's the process for Alameda County?
Well, unfortunately, the Board of Supervisors, with me voting no, decided we would be the redistricting body that would make all the decisions. We didn't set up a commission. We didn't set up a hybrid, which could have been a commission that comes up with the maps and then submits that to the board, and the board could choose what maps to advance or bring in additional maps. The board decided on a vote of 3-1 with me being the one opposed, and Halbert wasn't, I don't think he was present for that meeting. It was Supervisorwoman Chan, Miley, and Carson voted that we would be that body. And trust me, it's been a lot of meetings. We have, been, I think over the last few months, we have had meetings since the summer that have gone anywhere from 10 to 12 to 13 hours when you add in the redistricting component. So we've had some very, very lengthy Board of Supervisors meetings over the last 3 or 4 months.
And what have you been covering at those meetings? Of course, at the state level, we're hearing a lot about both community of interest and actually how to draw a map. What has been covered so far, and what remains to be covered?
Well, we've heard a lot of community of interest, COI, input. And under the law, a COI can be, a community of interest can be submitted by a person or a group of people. And we've had over 100 submissions. And we need to, and the staff has been directed to take the COI submissions and try to come up with various maps that would be reflective of the COIs and stay within the letter of the law. Because even though a COI is a top priority, there are other components as well that need to be followed. And the top priority, I believe, is making sure that the districts are, in terms of population, they're represented. But the point is, after that, I think you have the COI, and then you've got maybe another 3 or 4 variables, elements that be taken into consideration. So we've heard a lot of testimony around COIs. People have submitted what they consider their community of interest, be they an individual or a group of people. And we've probably had 4 meetings on this thus far.
Well, and again, for our readers, when you're saying COI, that's with the C, community of interest, where folks are saying, here's a community that I feel I'm part of, and we should presumably stay together or be in mind. What's some of the testimony you've heard about for the Tri-Valley?
Well, so far for the Tri-Valley, all of the testimony that we've heard is that Pleasanton should be part of a Tri-Valley district, be a part of Livermore and Dublin, all being in the same district with Pleasanton. And so we've seen some maps to that effect in terms of how that could be achieved. And so we haven't heard any testimony from anybody that they'd like to keep Pleasanton out of the Tri-Valley, the way it's presently aligned or configured. Although I shouldn't say that, there are people that are supporting other maps, and by supporting other maps, it would have Pleasanton continue to be in District 4. Now, we're going to be having a meeting on the 23rd, in fact, tomorrow in the evening at 6 o'clock, where I'm going to actually ask the staff, because they can do this, to take, because we have about 5 maps at this point, to take map A, and that's kind of like the existing districts with some minor tweaks, but take map A and show us a map where Pleasanton would not be in District 4, but everything else would basically remain the same, particularly as it relates to the unincorporated area, because there's been a lot of testimony that people in the unincorporated area would like to continue to have 2 supervisors.
Yeah, so that's it's a tricky part for sure. As you mentioned, the population of each of the districts has to be roughly equal. That's actually what I would say maybe is a constitutional or civil rights requirement. And then communities of interest and some of the other factors you mentioned, and that includes public input. So you're mentioning a meeting that's happening tomorrow night. Of course, Supervisor Report will play for a while. So what are ways in which constituents in the Tri-Valley can let their voice be heard about how their districts are written?
I would encourage people to call in because all of our meetings are still virtual, still remote, to join our meetings and they have an opportunity to speak under public comment about the maps that they see and express their opinions about what the district would, they feel the districts should be like. And they can even express what they feel is a community of interest for them. And we'll have a meeting tomorrow, the 23rd. We'll have a meeting on December 2nd at 6 o'clock. And those will pretty much be the last 2 meetings, because then December 7th and December 14th, we have to officially enact an ordinance on December 7th. That'd be the first reading, and December 14th would be the second reading, which would determine the districts for the Board of Supervisors for the next 10 years.
Okay, well, that'll be important. So folks can go, certainly, I'm sure, to the county website or your website to find out ways in which to have their voice heard, a couple more opportunities, but the time is nigh for adopting new maps that will be in place for the next decade. So I encourage folks to be a part of that process. Well, we've covered a lot of meaty topics, always as we do on Supervisor's Report. But I want to leave to you any upcoming announcements that we should be aware of, and especially going into the holiday season.
Well, just want to encourage everybody to be safe, have a good holiday, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. Be safe. Keep in mind that life is precious. I think the death of Supervisor Wilma Chan is a reminder of all that. And sometimes people take these sayings for granted, but we shouldn't take anything for granted. And I would just encourage everyone to stay vigilant as it relates to COVID. Please dial into the redistricting, because for the county, this will be over in the middle of December. And if you haven't voiced your opinion, it's over at that point in time. And the sooner, and like you said, Catherine, right now is the time to be dialing into this. And so those are the main things I would speak to at this particular point in time.
Good. Well, I think we join you in wishing everyone safe holidays, both COVID safe and smart, safe on the roads, and looking out for one another, and just best practices. We've learned so much in the last year, and always especially with the passing of a colleague and friend, how precious life is and how important it is to respect it and take good care of it. We have much to be grateful for. Our hills in the Tri-Valley are turning green, which has been absolutely wonderful. And I'm sure we'll be talking more in the coming year on Supervisor's Report. So thank you for that. And thank you for joining us for this latest episode of Supervisor's Report with Nate Miley. I'm your host, Catherine Baker. You can see future episodes right here on Tri-Valley TV. And in the meantime, have a wonderful holiday season. I know Supervisor Miley and I both wish you that, and stay well.